The streets of Westlake Hills were quiet at 9:47 p.m. on a warm September evening. Rachel Hayes drove her midnight blue BMW 5 Series through the tree-lined neighborhood, windows down, listening to jazz as she made her way home from dinner with friends in the upscale Austin suburb. Before starting the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Now let's get back to the video. She'd lived in Austin for 6 years now, ever since transferring from the Houston Police Department to take a position with the Austin PD's Internal Affairs Division. The promotion to lieutenant commander had come 2 years ago, and with it, the responsibility of investigating officer misconduct across the entire department. It was a job that made her few friends within the force, but it was a job that mattered deeply to her. Rachel slowed at a stop sign, checking both directions before proceeding. The neighborhood was upscale, large homes set back from the road, perfectly manicured lawns, luxury vehicles and driveways. She'd driven through here dozens of times. Her friend Monica lived just 3 blocks over. In her rearview mirror, she noticed headlights approaching, a police cruiser. Rachel didn't think much of it. She was going exactly the speed limit. Her registration was current, her inspection sticker valid. She had nothing to worry about. But then the lights came on, red and blue, flashing in her mirror. Rachel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She took a slow breath, then signaled and pulled to the curb. She'd been through this before, too many times actually. Sometimes it was legitimate, a broken taillight, an expired tag. But more often than not, it was something else. Something that had nothing to do with traffic violations and everything to do with the color of her skin. Rachel put the car in park, turned off the engine, and placed both hands on the steering wheel where they could be clearly seen. She'd taught these procedures to her own officers. Now she was following them herself. The cruiser's spotlight hit her side mirror, nearly blinding her. She could hear footsteps approaching, slow, deliberate. A knock on her window. Rachel turned to see a white male officer, mid-30s, with a crew cut and a sharp expression. His nameplate read, Morrison. Rachel rolled down her window halfway. "Evening, officer. Can I ask why I was stopped?" Officer Derek Morrison leaned down slightly, his flashlight sweeping the interior of her car. "License and registration." "Of course," Rachel said. "But I'd like to know the reason for the stop first. That's my right under Texas law." Morrison's jaw tightened. "License and registration. Now." Rachel kept her voice even. "Officer Morrison, I'm happy to comply, but Texas Transportation Code requires you to inform me of the reason for the stop. I'm just asking you to follow procedure." Morrison's eyes narrowed. "You a lawyer or something?" "I'm a citizen asking a legitimate question. License and registration." Each word was clipped, aggressive. Rachel reached slowly for her purse on the passenger seat, narrating her movements. "I'm reaching for my purse now. My wallet is inside." Morrison's hand moved to his hip, resting near his service weapon. "Keep your hands where I can see them." "They are visible, officer. I'm just getting my identification as you requested." Rachel pulled out her wallet, extracting her driver's license. As she did, her Internal Affairs badge, a gold shield with Lieutenant Commander engraved below the Austin PD seal, was briefly visible in the leather fold. She handed Morrison her license, deliberately keeping the badge hidden. "Not yet." Morrison took the license, shining his flashlight on it, his eyebrows raised slightly. "This your current address?" "Yes, sir." "You live around here?" Rachel's internal alarm went off. "Here we go. I live in Travis Heights. I was visiting a friend in the neighborhood." "What friend?" Rachel paused. "I don't see how that's relevant to a traffic stop, officer." Morrison straightened up, his expression hardening. "I'm asking the questions here. What friend? What address?" "Officer, unless there's a specific legal reason for these questions, I'd prefer not to answer. I haven't committed any traffic violations that I'm aware of." "Step out of the car." Rachel's heart rate increased, but her training kicked in. "Stay calm. Document everything." His body camera was recording. She could see the small lens on his chest. "On what grounds?" she asked. "I said step out of the car. Don't make me ask again." Rachel took a slow breath. "Officer Morrison, I'm going to step out of the vehicle. But I want to be clear that I'm doing so under protest, and I'm questioning the legal basis for this request." She opened the door slowly and stepped out. At 5 feet 7 inches, she still had to look up at Morrison, who stood about 6 feet 2 inches. "Turn around." Hands on the vehicle. This was escalating fast, and Rachel knew exactly why. Morrison patted her down roughly, his hands lingering longer than necessary. Rachel gritted her teeth but said nothing. Every second was being recorded. "So let me get this straight," Morrison said, stepping back. "You're driving through one of the most expensive neighborhoods in Austin at almost 10 o'clock at night, in a car that probably costs more than most people make in a year, and you expect me to believe you're just visiting a friend?" Rachel turned to face him, her expression carefully neutral. "I expect you to do your job professionally and without bias, officer." Morrison laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Bias? Is that what we're calling it now? I'm doing my job, which is keeping this neighborhood safe." "Safe from what exactly?" "From people who don't belong here." There it was, out in the open. Rachel's voice remained steady. "And how do you determine who belongs and who doesn't, Officer Morrison?" Morrison leaned in closer. "I can tell." "Can you?" "Based on what criteria?" "Based on experience, based on the fact that we've had break-ins in this area, based on the fact that you're acting suspicious." "Suspicious," Rachel repeated. "By driving the speed limit and following all traffic laws, by being evasive, by questioning my authority, by refusing to answer simple questions. Questions I have no legal obligation to answer," Rachel countered. "Questions that have nothing to do with traffic safety and everything to do with your personal assumptions about who I am and why I'm here." Morrison's face flushed red. "You want to play lawyer? Fine. I'm detaining you for suspicious activity. Under what statute? I don't have to explain myself to you. Actually, you do. Terry versus Ohio requires reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. What criminal activity do you suspect me of?" Morrison's eyes flashed with anger. "How about obstruction? How about failure to comply with a lawful order? Asking questions isn't obstruction, and your orders are only lawful if they're based on legitimate law enforcement purposes. So far, you haven't articulated any." Morrison stepped back, his hand moving to his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 217. I need backup at Westlake Drive and Canyon Ridge. I've got a hostile subject refusing to comply." Rachel closed her eyes briefly. This was going to get worse before it got better. Within 3 minutes, 2 more patrol cars arrived, their lights painting the quiet neighborhood in red and blue. Curious neighbors emerged from their homes, watching from porches and driveways. Morrison's backup, 2 officers Rachel didn't recognize, approached cautiously. "What's the situation?" the older of the 2 asked. His name tag read, "Officer Phillips." "Subject is non-compliant," Morrison said. "Possible 10 to 37. Suspicious vehicle." Phillips looked at Rachel, then at her BMW, then back at Morrison with obvious confusion. "What's the actual violation?" "I'm investigating," Morrison snapped. Phillips glanced at Rachel. "Ma'am, do you have identification?" "Officer Morrison already has my license," Rachel said calmly. Phillips walked over to Morrison. "Derek, what's going on? Why are we here?" Morrison lowered his voice, but Rachel could still hear. "She doesn't belong in this neighborhood, Tom. Look at her. Look at the car. Something's not right." Phillips's expression shifted, a flicker of recognition that Rachel caught immediately. He knew. He knew exactly what this was. "Derek," Phillips said quietly, "maybe we should just—" "She was acting suspicious," Morrison insisted. "Evasive, wouldn't answer basic questions." "What questions?" "Where she was going, who she was visiting." Phillips exhaled slowly. "Derek, that's not— It's my stop, Tom, I'll handle it." Phillips looked at Rachel again and she saw something in his expression, sympathy maybe, or resignation. But he didn't stop it. And that, Rachel thought, was almost worse than Morrison's behavior. Rachel had been standing beside her car for 15 minutes now. Morrison was back at his cruiser, supposedly running her information, though she knew there was nothing to find. Officer Phillips stood nearby, looking uncomfortable. The 3rd officer, a younger woman whose name tag read Officer Chen, kept stealing glances at Rachel with what looked like concern. Finally, Morrison returned. He held Rachel's license in one hand and a citation book in the other. "Well, Ms. Hayes," he said, drawing out her name mockingly. "Everything checks out. Clean record, no warrants, registered vehicle." He paused. "Almost disappointing." Rachel said nothing. "But here's the thing," Morrison continued. "I'm still not convinced about your story. So I'm going to issue you a citation for—" He glanced at his book. Failure to use a turn signal. Rachel's eyebrows raised. I used my turn signal when I pulled over. Not when you turned onto this street. I didn't turn onto this street. I've been driving straight for 6 blocks. Morrison smiled coldly. That's not what I observed. It was a lie. They both knew it, and his body camera would prove it. But Morrison was banking on Rachel not fighting it. Most people didn't. A bogus citation, a $200 fine. Easier to just pay it and move on. But Rachel wasn't most people. Officer Morrison, she said, her voice still calm but carrying a new edge. I'm going to ask you one more time to review your body camera footage before you write that citation. Because if you proceed with this false charge, it's going to become a much bigger problem for you. Morrison's smile widened. Is that a threat? It's a fact. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about, Morrison said, turning to Phillips and Chen. This attitude, this disrespect for law enforcement, this is why we have problems in communities like... He stopped himself, but everyone knew what he'd been about to say. Rachel had heard enough. She reached into her blazer pocket, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out her badge wallet. She flipped it open, holding it up so all 3 officers could see clearly. The gold shield gleamed under the streetlights. Lieutenant Commander Rachel Hayes, Internal Affairs Division, Austin Police Department. Morrison's face went white. Phillips actually took a step back, muttering something under his breath that sounded like, "Oh no." Chen's eyes went wide. Rachel kept her badge held high, her voice steady and clear. Officer Derek Morrison, badge number 2847, you've just conducted an unlawful traffic stop based on racial profiling. You've escalated a non-incident into a detention without reasonable suspicion. You've made false statements about a traffic violation, and you've done all of it while your body camera recorded every single word. Morrison's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Rachel lowered her badge, her eyes locked on his. I'm Lieutenant Commander Hayes with Internal Affairs, and as of this moment, you're under investigation for misconduct, racial profiling, abuse of authority, and filing a false citation. The silence was deafening. Officer Phillips was the first to speak, his voice barely above a whisper. Derek, what did you do? Morrison's face had gone from white to red, sweat beading on his forehead. I didn't know. You didn't know, Rachel's voice was sharp now. You didn't know that racially profiling someone is wrong? You didn't know that detaining someone without cause is a violation of their civil rights? Or you didn't know I was a cop, so you thought you could get away with it? Morrison's hands were shaking. Ma'am, Lieutenant Commander, this is a misunderstanding. Is it? Rachel stepped closer. Because from where I'm standing, this is crystal clear. You saw a black woman driving a nice car through a white neighborhood and immediately assumed she was a criminal. You had no reasonable suspicion, no probable cause, no legal justification whatsoever. You just had your bias. She turned to Phillips. Officer Phillips, I'm going to need you to preserve all body camera footage from this stop immediately. That includes Officer Morrison's, yours, and Officer Chen's. Phillips nodded quickly. Yes, ma'am. I also need you to call your supervisor. Get a sergeant out here right now. Yes, ma'am. Phillips was already reaching for his radio. Rachel turned back to Morrison. Here's what's going to happen, Officer Morrison. You're going to stand there quietly while we wait for your supervisor. You're not going to touch that body camera. You're not going to write any citations. You're not going to say another word. Do you understand? Morrison nodded mutely. I need a verbal response, officer. Yes, Morrison croaked. I understand. Within 5 minutes, a sergeant's vehicle pulled up. Sergeant Mike Rodriguez stepped out, a stocky Hispanic man in his late 40s whom Rachel knew by reputation. He was fair, by the book, and didn't tolerate nonsense. He took one look at the scene, Morrison's pale face, Phillips's nervous stance, Rachel's badge still visible, and his expression hardened. Someone want to tell me what's going on? Rodriguez asked. Rachel stepped forward. Sergeant Rodriguez, I'm Lieutenant Commander Hayes, Internal Affairs. Officer Morrison conducted an unlawful traffic stop on me approximately 30 minutes ago. The stop was based on racial profiling, escalated without cause, and culminated in his attempt to issue a false citation. Rodriguez's jaw tightened. He turned to Morrison. "Is this true, Derek?" Morrison stammered. "I was just doing my job." "Answer the question," Rodriguez snapped. "Did you stop the lieutenant commander without cause?" Morrison's silence was answer enough. Rodriguez pulled out his phone, stepping away to make a call. Rachel could hear snippets. "Need you down here now? IA is involved. Major incident." When Rodriguez returned, his expression was grim. "Lieutenant Commander, the watch commander is en route. He'll want your statement." "I'll provide a full report," Rachel said, "but first I want to make something clear." She raised her voice slightly. "This isn't just about me. How many other people has Officer Morrison pulled over like this? How many didn't have a badge to show? How many just accepted the harassment because they thought they had no choice?" She looked directly at Morrison. "How many, officer?" Morrison's lips trembled. I never. Your body camera will tell us," Rachel said. "We're going to review every stop you've made in the past year, every interaction, every citation. And we're going to see a pattern, aren't we?" Morrison's face crumbled. "Please, I have a family, so do the people you've harassed," Rachel cut him off. The watch commander arrived, Captain James Burton, a stern-faced white man in his 50s. Rachel had worked with him before. He was old school, but fair. Burton surveyed the scene, then approached Rachel. "Lieutenant Commander Hayes, I understand we have a situation." "Yes, sir. Officer Morrison conducted an unlawful stop based on racial profiling. Full details will be in my report." Burton nodded slowly, then turned to Morrison. "Officer Morrison, you're relieved of duty effective immediately. Badge and weapon now." Morrison's face went pale. "Captain, please, now, officer." With shaking hands, Morrison removed his badge and unholstered his service weapon, handing them to Burton. "You'll report to Internal Affairs at 0800 tomorrow," Burton continued. "Until then, you're on administrative leave. Do not discuss this case with anyone. Do not contact Lieutenant Commander Hayes. Do not approach any witnesses. Am I clear?" "Yes, sir," Morrison whispered. Burton turned to Rodriguez. "Sergeant, get him out of here." As Morrison was led away, Rachel felt the adrenaline finally starting to fade. Officer Chen approached hesitantly. "Lieutenant Commander?" Chen's voice was quiet. "I just want to say, I'm sorry. I should have said something. I knew it was wrong, but You were scared," Rachel finished for her. "Scared of going against a fellow officer." Chen nodded, tears in her eyes. "That fear," Rachel said gently. "That's what we're going to fix. Because if good cops stayed silent, the bad ones would keep winning." 3 weeks after the traffic stop, Rachel sat in a conference room at Austin Police Department headquarters. Around the table sat Captain Burton, Chief of Police Margaret Torres, the department's legal counsel, and representatives from the Austin Justice Coalition. On the screen, body camera footage played. Morrison's voice echoed. "She doesn't belong in this neighborhood, I can tell. People who don't belong here." Chief Torres, a distinguished Hispanic woman in her mid-50s, watched with a stony expression. When the footage ended, she turned to the group. "This is unacceptable. Completely unacceptable." Rachel had spent 3 weeks building her case. She'd reviewed Morrison's body camera footage from the previous 18 months. She'd interviewed citizens who'd filed complaints. She'd analyzed his traffic stop data. The pattern was undeniable. Out of 127 traffic stops Morrison had made in the past year, 89 had been of Black or Hispanic drivers. In a city where minorities made up 48% of the population, Morrison's stops were 70% non-white. Rachel presented her findings systematically. This isn't just about one bad traffic stop. It's about a pattern of discriminatory policing that's been allowed to continue for years. A civilian representative spoke up. "Why wasn't this caught earlier?" Chief Torres shifted uncomfortably. "The answer," Rachel interjected, "is that we haven't been looking. Body cameras are only useful if someone reviews the footage. Complaints are only meaningful if they're properly investigated." She pulled up another slide. I've identified 6 other officers with similar patterns. They need intervention, retraining, or removal. Captain Burton leaned forward. 6? Are you certain? The data doesn't lie, Captain. We have a systemic problem. Chief Torres was quiet for a long moment. What are your recommendations? Rachel was ready. Short term, Morrison should be terminated and referred for criminal investigation. The 6 officers I've identified should be placed on desk duty pending review. Long term, we overhaul our training. We implement regular body camera audits. We create a civilian review board with real authority. We establish clear consequences for racial profiling, and we make it safe for officers to report misconduct without fear of retaliation. She paused. Most importantly, we acknowledge the problem. We stop pretending it doesn't exist. We commit to real, meaningful change. The room was silent. Finally, Chief Torres nodded. Draft me a proposal, full departmental reform. I want it on my desk in 2 weeks. She stood. This ends now. No more Derek Morrisons. No more victims who don't have a badge to protect them. It was a start. 1 year later, Rachel stood at a podium in Austin PD's main auditorium. The room was packed with officers, city officials, and community members. She was there to present the results of the department's reform initiative. 12 months ago, this department faced a crisis of trust. Our community didn't believe we were serving them fairly, and they were right. The statistics told the story. Complaints of biased policing were down 62%. Traffic stops showed demographic parity for the first time. Community trust surveys showed a 34% improvement. But the real measure isn't in statistics. It's in the fact that citizens can drive through any neighborhood in this city without fearing they'll be stopped because of the color of their skin. After the presentation, Officer Chen approached Rachel. Lieutenant Commander, thank you for speaking up, for showing me what courage looks like. You found your own courage, Officer Chen. I filed a report last week about another officer making racist comments. It was hard, but I remembered what you said. If good cops stay silent, the bad ones win. Rachel smiled. That took real courage. As Rachel left the auditorium, she received a text from Morrison's wife. Derek was wrong. What he did was wrong. I've seen the footage. Thank you for holding him accountable. I'm teaching my kids that actions have consequences. Rachel thought about Morrison, now serving time in federal prison. She didn't take pleasure in his downfall, but she didn't regret it either. She looked up at the Austin Police Department building. The fight wasn't over. It would never be over. But they were winning. Because real change doesn't happen overnight. It happens one traffic stop at a time, one officer at a time, one act of courage at a time. And Rachel Hayes wasn't done fighting. If this story moved you, share it. Not everyone who gets pulled over has a badge, but everyone deserves justice. Thank you very much for listening. Please let us know what you think of this story in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any other videos.